Have you ever had a moment where everything felt normal, and then one phone call, one email, one appointment later, nothing felt normal anymore?
And that's how fast life can shift.
Fast, like the blink of an eye fast. And suddenly, the stuff we like to pretend doesn't matter, like your money, your savings, insurance, expenses, becomes the loudest voice in the room.
Not because you were reckless, not because you were irresponsible, but because life showed up.
And that is what we're talking about today. Because I'm going through something right now that forced me to look at my own preparedness in a very real way.
And when Chris told me what was happening, my first thought was, this is exactly why we've been saying this for years, that financial planning isn't about spreadsheets. It's about shock absorbers.
Most people think being financially prepared is about being perfect, having everything optimized, having all of the answers.
But in reality, it's about being positioned.
Positioned to breathe, positioned to slow down, positioned to make decisions instead of panic.
And the scary part is, most people don't realize how exposed they are until they're already in it.
So today, we're breaking down why trouble usually doesn't come in a dramatic movie-style moment. It comes in everyday human moments.
A health issue, a job change, a family emergency, a bill you didn't see coming.
And we're going to talk about what actually creates real financial preparedness. Not hype, not hacks, not get-rich-quick schemes.
Just simple systems that buy you peace of mind when life hits.
Because preparedness isn't about expecting the worst. It's about respecting yourself enough to build a life that can absorb a hit.
This is episode 168 with the Fi Guys. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Fi Guys podcast, the show where we dive deep into the world of financial independence and personal finance. Whether you're just starting out on your journey or well on your way to financial freedom, we've got the insights and strategies you need to achieve your financial goals.
In each episode, we'll provide actionable tips and real-life success stories to inspire and guide you on your path to financial independence. So, grab your notepad and get ready to transform your financial future with the Fi Guys podcast. Let's get started. The Fi Guys is a podcast dedicated to providing general information and insights on a wide range of wealth-related topics. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not constitute personalized financial advice.
The content provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It should not be considered a substitute for professional financial advice. Your financial situation and goals are unique, and the information provided here may not be applicable or suitable for your specific circumstances.
We, the host and the guests of the Fi Guys, are not acting as your financial advisor. We are not aware of your individual financial situations, risk tolerance, or investment objectives. Any decisions or actions you take based on the information provided on this podcast are your own and made at your own risk. I may be a financial advisor, but I am not your financial advisor. And now that the lawyers are happy, let's get started. Have you ever had something in your life change overnight? And suddenly, money went from background noise to front and center stress. Not because you were reckless, not because you were irresponsible, but because life just happened. Today, we're talking about why being financially prepared isn't about being perfect. It's about being positioned. Because trouble doesn't send a calendar invite. Most people think preparedness is about extreme scenarios. But in reality, it's usually very normal stuff. Health issues, job changes, family emergencies, or that unexpected bill that comes in the mail. Preparedness isn't being pessimistic. It's about having peace of mind. So Dom, thanks for joining me today. And we're going to talk a lot about this, something that's kind of real life to myself, and maybe even you've experienced something like this as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think everybody has a season in their life where, everything just seems to be on fire, and not necessarily in a good way. It's like, not like, oh man, I'm killing it right now. It's like, no, everything is I'm on fire right now. Literally, I'm putting out fires left and right while also burning. Right. So yeah, definitely. It's going to be a very real podcast, but I noticed, Chris, what made this topic feel especially real for you right now? I know you're not that good of an actor. There's no way you're acting this well. So usually you come from a place of reality, of experience. So what's kind of the reason we're going with this episode for today?
Yeah, I mean, it's because it happened to me, and without having a little bit of financial preparedness, my stress levels, my anxiety, like I don't even know we'd be doing this podcast because I'd be sitting in my bed underneath the covers. Just a little bit of brief as to what's going on. If you're a longtime listener of the podcast, I told you a few weeks ago that my wife's car went into the shop and it's still freaking there. So that's just a lot of stress. But in addition to that, um, other listeners of the pod might know that I've also been working for a job for a little while since we moved back to San Diego and our expenses rose. Well, recently I lost that job. And on that exact same day that I lost that job, I found out that I need to have a full knee surgery in order to repair some damage to some ligaments. So it's just a lot of now you're going to have this surprise medical bill because insurance only covers so much because we live in America and it doesn't matter how good insurance you have, they're not going to cover majority of it. And then you find out, oh, and don't have a job anymore and you need to go find a job, but you won't be able to walk for a while. And you still have to pay for all these other bills and all of this other stuff starts coming through. And it almost feels like the universe is like kicking me out of the nest and like, hey, you need to grow, you need to adapt, you need to get better. And since we still live in the physics of the real world, money just doesn't stop. Your bills just don't stop. Things just don't stop when life kicks you in the ass. So today I want to talk about financial preparedness because I never want someone to find themselves in the situation that I find myself in because unfortunately sometimes when it rains, it pours. And too many people are thinking, oh, it's okay. I'll deal with it when I get there. But I don't know if I didn't have a little bit of financial runway, a little bit of preparedness that I thought about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and set myself up for this moment, that I'd be able to make it through. Because when all of this is coming at you, when you're panicking, when you're freaking out, when you're already scared, now you have to make some of the best decisions of your life. I don't want to find myself in that situation. And I don't think many of our listeners do either.
It's interesting, Chris. You said something in there that I thought was interesting. You don't want to find yourself in this situation, but in actuality, you know, one way or another, we're typically a lot of us are going to go through something similar to this: a job loss, a surgery, right? An unexpected, expense in a big way, a big life changes, right? And you said, I hope you don't find yourself like this, right? But in actuality, we should be hopeful that we find ourselves in a situation like you, right? Because you were that person you did prepare, right? It's not like, well, hey, Chris's background next week is going to be under a bridge, right? That's not what's going to happen, right? Because you planned, you prepared, and like a great captain, you saw the weather coming in, and you're like, hey, I know what's coming. I'm going to buy my umbrellas and buy them now, so when the rain comes, I'm not going to get hit as hard, right? I'm going to get a little bit wet, right? Everybody gets wet, even if they have an umbrella, but it's that level of preparedness that we talk about on the podcast often. That's hard to execute, but great to have, especially in times of turmoil. And we both know that turmoil is always on the horizon. Right? It's one door knock away. It's always lurking, and that's okay because we're always prepared. And I think that's what's so important. And that's kind of what I'm already starting to kind of get from this episode. And I hope that the listeners are feeling the same about that. So I'm excited to continue on with this episode and
Yeah.
dive more in and see how we can inspire more people to be at that level of readiness like you were. Um,
Yeah. And I don't think you're ever going to feel like fully ready. I mean, that's just
yeah.
kind of it. You always felt I could have been more prepared. But I guess I have a question for you, Dominic.
Mhm.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to prepare, to try to get ready for this inevitability in life where things aren't working? Because trouble, it comes really fast. It's often one phone call, one diagnosis, one email, one accident, one layoff. And unfortunately, I had a few of those all simultaneously. And I think it's the speed that which shocks people of how fast these things can come in sequence. And then the financial pain usually comes from a lack of margin, not a lack of income. It's not being able to absorb any shocks to the system. So I guess I proposed the question, like, why do you think so many people struggle to prepare for these inevitabilities in life?
I mean, fear, to be honest. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all fear based. I don't want to. It's like for old people. Sometimes it's like, hey, we need you to write your will. We need you to write your trust. Who's going to get what? It's like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to think about that. That's tomorrow, and that's not today, right? It's 'cause nobody wants to die. Nobody nobody wants to die. It's scary to die, right? Can be. Um, you know, one of the things that I heard, I think I heard this growing up or sometime in the past, but it was that you can kind of tell the not necessarily the character, but the quality of the man based on the quality of the problems he's facing in his world, right? The bigger the problems, right? The more the universe trusts that he can get them done, that he can solve them. Um, you got some good problems on your hands. You got some wild, they're large, no doubt. Um, but you got shoulders that can weather them. The shoulders that can carry them. And it's one of those things that this has been true in my life. I don't know if this has been true in your life, but listeners, feel free to comment down below whether you think this is true or not. Maybe I'm just living in a different world, but the universe or God or whatever you want to believe, to me, God, but God will never send you something you can't handle. I mean, I've had some pretty rough days, right? You've had some pretty rough days. We've all had immensely tough days, death, financial ruin, I don't know, relationship quarrel, and, all these different things, right? But even on that darkest day, we're still here. We made it through the storm. None of those storms capsized the boat and threw us into the ocean in a way where we couldn't recover. And I think that's always important to keep in mind you know, in times like this where you are in trouble and things are going very poorly. But also remember, a wise Chris Monzon once told me and continues to tell me, like, this too shall pass. Right. So it's important to be prepared, but it's as equally as important to have the right framework while going through the storm and to
Yeah.
understand and know that this isn't forever. This isn't it might be your new reality for a little bit, but nothing is forever, right? The good times weren't forever. The bad times won't be forever. And that this too shall pass.
Yeah. I think something I've been finding is like my mind will lock on to the negative and assume that this is reality forever. Rather, when something's positive, it's like, all right, this is ephemeral. That's going to go away here in the next like 10 minutes. But this negative thing, this is going to stick with me indefinitely. And something I've been telling myself a lot from like my stoic practices is you oftentimes in life, if ever, can control what happens to you. The only thing you really have control over is how you choose to react to it. And sometimes that's difficult when your automatic reaction is like, this is going to be forever. This is going to suck. You are a loser. You've lost. You tried, you failed, and you're going to run out of money, and your financial preparedness doesn't really matter. When we don't know that that's how the story is going to end. But I feel like if I was to continue to think like this is the way the story is going to end, well, subconsciously or maybe even consciously, I'll build that reality. And that's really what scares me. So I guess I'd like to discuss some of the 4 pillars of financial preparedness that I think our listeners should try to implement in their lives before these times come. Because even for someone like myself who is prepared, who was prepared due to years of planning for this inevitability of something going wrong, I couldn't foresee how bad it would get and how quickly it would get. So number one is emergency cash. And no, I don't mean an investment account. I don't mean crypto. I don't mean something that's tied to market swings, because simple and boring and accessible in these times of need are exactly what you need. Dom, I know we've talked about, like you've said, like, oh, my emergency fund is in like a moderate portfolio. And, if my emergency fund was in a moderate portfolio right now, I'd be like, oh my God, like it's down. So it's not very moderate. Just when it does really feel like when it rains, it pours. I think a lot of us, when we think about the stock market, we're like, oh, it always goes up. And if it went down, then I would just buy more because that's what I know what to do. I've listened to the FI guys long enough. I understand dollar cost averaging. And I think it's because we predict a world where we wake up one morning and that morning is just like this morning. Everything's normal, but all of a sudden the stock market's down 50%. And you're like, wow, what a great opportunity. But in reality, if the stock market is down 50%, it's because a plane just ran into some towers. It's because we're finding out that there is a virus that might shut down the world. It's because there's a nuclear Armageddon that's on the horizon. And at that point, now you have to decide, oh no, this isn't real. Like the stock market isn't just going to go the wrong direction and give you that buying opportunity without also giving you a lot of grief and fear around those things. So that's why having that emergency fund that is just there, ready to go, maybe sitting in a money market account or like short-term bonds or something very, very safe. It's boring. It's simple. Some people might say it's stupid. But when you end up in these moments that I'm in right now, it was anything but those things to me. It was really a lifeline. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely smart. It's definitely smart to always have, cash on hand, right? Stuff that feels tangible, stuff that feels real, right? Some of us have safe in the house, wads of cash, right? And to some of us, that is safety, right? It's like, oh, cool. If I get wiped out, I still have this to, and I still have the emergency fund, right? I think it is important that it's not tied to crypto and investments, right? It has to exist outside of the system. Um, but I think that's a good first step. I think that's a great first step. What do we
Yeah.
have for the second step?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get that in a second. I think it's just important that like we as the FI guys kind of say that whenever you go online and you look at other people that talk about finances, everyone has their opinion. They're all very strong on their opinions. And one of the biggest things I hear from my coaching clients is like, Chris, we don't know who to listen to because everyone is saying something completely different and they all sound right and they all sound super confident in what they're saying. And some of the people that work with me say the reason I like you is because you don't say like this is the way things are and you have to do it this way. You're open to nuances in life, right? And that's what we have really tried to bring here into the FI guys is try to open up to those nuances in life. So I think when people hear about emergency funds, they think like, well, my opportunity cost is gone now. I could use that money to make more money. But it's moments like this, it's moments of emergency that you realize that that little bit of a buffer, while maybe not be the most financially prudent decisions in times of stability, in times where things are going the way they should be, yeah, maybe it's not the best decision, but how often in life can you look back on a 5 year, a 1 year, a 10 year increment and say everything went the way that I wanted it to? Nothing surprised me in any way, shape, or form. So that's why I think having that emergency cash, while yes, a drag on your retirement, a drag on your investments, a drag on getting the best return and being able to tell people how smart you are for choosing the right stock or the right cryptocurrency or the right real estate investment, it gives you a little bit of margin for when one of those things or something else in life goes awry. I think the next pillar that we need to talk about in financial preparedness comes to income protection. And this is something that most people don't really think about. Like, what is my short term disability? What's my long term disability? What work benefits actually cover that I currently have? And this is going to be individual to your workplace. This is going to be individual to what state you're in. But without knowing these things, when life comes for you, you lose a job, you get hit by a car, you get sick, and now you have to figure out how does my state work when it comes to this disability stuff? If I can't work for a little while, what benefits am I actually covered on under work? I'm not saying you have to be a complete expert and know the ins and outs and intricacies of every single disease that can come to you in your life because you never will, but at least have a little bit of a wider perspective of, I know in general what the steps are in case these things come. I know in general what I can count on. I know I can go on disability. I know I can go on to unemployment. I know how to do these things, or at least know where to start in order to figure it out. Because I think the scariest thing would be I just lost my job, I have this unexpected bill, and I have zero resources. When in truth, you might have other resources, you might have unemployment, you might have disability, you might have benefits. But if you're unaware of those things, no one is going to come out of the woodwork from HR and be like, oh, actually, Dominic, just so you know, before you go into debt on all these things and put on your credit card, we're actually going to pay for those things because it's in your benefits. Unfortunately, there aren't many advocates in your life and you have to save yourself. Thoughts on that?
I got no thoughts on that. I was just like, I was thinking about it and I was like, well, man, I wish I would have known that like during COVID, when everyone got laid off. I got laid off during COVID. And then kind of started my own little business. Man, I took unemployment for a while to like keep me afloat because nobody's gonna hire you during a pandemic. Nobody knows what's coming, right? Um, and it was that actually really helped me stay afloat during that time. This is before my financial revolution in my life. Um, the Great Awakening, the Great Financial Awakening, I guess you could say. But no, it's like you said, if you don't have those advocates, you don't know what you have. You don't know what you need, right? It's almost like I guess this is the whole theme of the podcast, right? But I guess we should all look into like if X happens, this is what we do, right? And have a whole list of things, similar to like the military happens, right? If North Korea fires off a rocket, right, we're gonna fire off X rockets, right? Having these things. If I lose my job, what is the next step? What immediately triggers? And for me, I think that is I know this doesn't really pertain to income protection, but to me that is like so liberating. Um because it's like, oh my gosh, I can stop. It's like I don't have to think right now. I already thought of the plan. Um when I was rational and not like just really stressed out and primordial and but yeah, sorry, I kind of went on a rant there for a second. It got me thinking about how, we should really run through every scenario in order to be prepared and think of the worst case scenario and then double whatever the worst case scenario is because life will throw combo punches at you like Mike Tyson, just crazy stuff. But that is income protection. I like that one. I think it's
Yeah.
very important to understand, what your work actually covers, right? What benefits you actually have at your disposal. It's very important to know that.
Yeah, I think it's important, something that you just mentioned there about like how fast things can come and what we need to do to prepare for it. I think a lot of people, they're afraid to think about what's the worst case scenario because there's like this thought of if I think of the worst case scenario, I'm going to like bring it into existence. But I think there's a very big difference between like having a plan for the worst case scenario and like legitimately like bringing that into existence. Um, I think that too many people, just because of like what you brought up earlier as to why many people don't get financially prepared, it's because of that fear. It's the fear of even thinking about it. Things are going well right now. Of course, they're going to continue to go well. And I think that's just our mind playing tricks on us. The same way that my brain goes, things are going poorly, they're going to go poorly forever. Things are going well, they're not going to stay well. I feel like maybe most people have brains that are maybe better than mine that do the opposite. And that's a good thing for them because they're not constantly mired in negativity. But maybe it doesn't set them up for the eventuality that life doesn't work the way that you want it to. I saw that you maybe had a thought there when I was talking.
Yeah, I don't think any one mind is greater than the other. I think, there's it's not like you were born and then it's like God's like, this one's gonna be pessimistic. This one's gonna be optimistic. It's like, no, no. You learned these things based on your reality, right? You learned a lesson from your reality that brought you to this point, and that point has served you up until now. but now it's like a core belief for you. It's a core happening. Um, it's very difficult to change core beliefs, right? You know, trying to tell me that the sky isn't blue. Come on now, what are we talking about? Tell me it's just a reflection. I don't know. It seems far fetched, but it got you this far, and I think that's part of like that for me at least. That's one of the things that I've had to struggle with, like when improving. It's like, well, this system that I'm using or whatever, this way of thought process, the way I'm thinking, it got you this far, right? But what I've learned is that something can only take you so far. And in order to get to the next level, you have to honestly start over and rethink how you think about everything, because the weapons and the tools and the tactics you used on a level 1 boss, it's not going to work for a level 2 boss, right? And I think that's one of the things in our culture that needs to change in a big way is really shedding yourself, shedding your skin, shedding um, shedding the way that you are in order to be who you want to become. And that's tough. I mean, it's so easy for me to sit in my office saying this, right? And I recognize that, and I recognize how difficult it truly is to change everything about you and still hold the same, I was talking with a friend about this yesterday. I was like, man, I know this sounds corny, but I need to completely reinvent myself. Take away everything that's bad, keep the good stuff so that I can be like a butterfly or, bust out of the cocoon and be like a butterfly. And I think that's what's really needed. And when you were talking about, you have this pessimistic mind and it's like, yeah, I mean, we do what serves us. So it served you, but is it serving you? Served past tense, is it going to serve you? It's like logically, and yeah, it worked in the past, it'll work in the present, but like you said, today isn't always like yesterday, and tomorrow isn't always like today.
Yeah. There's a thing in therapy that I remember talking about. I can't remember what it was called, but basically that the universe, God, whatever it is that you believe in, is going to continue to serve you the same things over and over and over again until you figure it out.
Yeah.
It's going to keep on until you like beat this level. You're going to keep on replaying this level over and over and over again until you come to a realization or until you figure it out. It's just going to be your normal. And I think too many people, especially in this culture, and I know I feel it internally, it's almost scary to be like, all right, I need to change myself. I need to fix myself and admit that I am the problem here, or that decisions I made led me to this moment. And maybe I need to your point, switch up the plot and like change up everything and maybe not implode my life, but like really try to figure out a different way of operating, of being. Because I think implicit in that, in our minds, it says that means that the way that I was before was wrong. And if I was wrong, then I was a failure. And then that this might be a failure. So I'd rather just stick with what I know. Because if I don't change, then I never have to admit that I was wrong and that I was a failure. I'm not saying that's the right way of thinking. I'm just saying I wonder if that's a bias because that's the way I probably subconsciously think about it. Because it's hard to start over. Like
Oh,
it's
it's immensely difficult. There's a reason, people don't do it every day, but difficult's good. Difficult is like difficult is like seeing a shiny object when you're hunting for diamonds in the rough. It's like, oh, that could be a diamond. It's difficult. Let me, let me dig here. Let me mine this out. See if there is a diamond here. I think, you know, I don't think I know. I know that, if it is difficult, there is some value to it. If society isn't really going towards it, probably something you should be going towards. Unless it's like crack. I wouldn't go towards that. But society's pretty hooked on that stuff, so I don't know. Um,
and maybe we're wrong. Maybe crack is the right way.
maybe it is. Maybe, I mean, hell, if you want to have a 48-hour day in a 24-hour span, try crack. Not sponsored, by the way. Um, Not sponsored. So anyway, that's that's a funny little bit. It reminds me of that Anchorman 2, where he's like, "So you're telling me we can't smoke crack live on air?" It's like, what is this? So funny. Um, no, but it is difficult to reinvent yourself, and I think it's as I think it is as hard and as easy as we make it. I think we make it harder because we don't want to go through it. It's like an advanced form of procrastination. When in actuality, we should write out everything we love about ourselves that we want to keep for this next version and everything we don't like about ourselves. And then just like going down the list. It's like, hey, I'm always late, right? Let's change that. How do we fix that? Well, we could change the clocks all back, right? I did that as a kid. Didn't really have any effect. In fact, I was never sure what time it was. Um, and I actually, ironically, a joke came out of it where this was back when I was in college. I would purposely set my clock ahead like 7 hours, and it would always crack me up, and it would always bug the hell out of my day. It's like, what's going on here? It's not 7:30. It's like, no, I just every time I see it, it cracks me up. But no, I think it to reinvent yourself, it takes focus, it takes a lot of discipline, and it takes being the type of person to walk the road alone. Many won't understand it. Many won't understand it. Um, and that's okay.
I think that might be the one of the biggest hangups for people when it comes towards thinking about changing things up. It's that many won't understand it. And that the fear of being judged, the fear of, oh, you're so stupid. You tried something and it didn't work out for you. Like it would have worked out for me. And like these, you know, Monday morning, Monday morning quarterbackers who are sitting there on their couch saying, I would have done this, I'd have done this, I'd have done this. And, we fear that way of living because in truth, we all want to be our own person. We all want to go in our direction, but we only move in relation to the crowds.
It's amazing how much we believe that we're outside of the system and outside of the crowds, but in actuality, we're right in the middle of it. And it's so easy to say that it's like, I'm different. I would do it differently. And I'd be a good person when no one's watching. Talk is cheap. Right.
Yeah. You don't know
But
if that's true.
yeah, and that's one of the things that it's very difficult to see when you're in the thick of it. But you should be grateful for the hard times in your life because it gives you a chance to see you for who you really are. And for some of us, it's not a good picture. For others, it's also not a good picture. I don't think any of us, um, when the tide comes in, are proud of the pants we're wearing, right? Or the shorts we're wearing. I think everybody lives with that where it's like, man, I should be. I want to be. I ought to be. People see me like this. And again, it goes back to the crowd, right? It's like the fear of persecution, the fear of judgment. I mean, we talk about on the episode on the podcast all the time. We have this ancient brain that still believes that if we are ostracized, if we are kicked out of society, we're finished, right? And in actuality, I mean, I don't. Sometimes I feel like, man, I wish I was kicked out so I could just go to like Switzerland and just have a little bakery and all that. But that's not my life. But what are your thoughts on that, Chris? Do you think that, you know, I mean, I would assume, right? Most people are not happy with where they are. Most people want to be more, but they're missing like that missing link. They're missing like one or two things that are just s- that make them steps away from their goal.
Yeah. And I wonder what those things are. I fear that many of us, we kind of go through life knowing that something's missing, but we just hope that someone else is going to come and tell us what that is and what we need to do in order to gain those missing pieces of ourselves. And maybe like we're not even missing parts. Maybe we just need to unlearn things. Like maybe the parts are already there. They're just blocked by other things that are corrupting them. You know, I often think of, I feel like we're doing more of a Five Friday feedback podcast than we are a normal podcast, but I like this. So we'll keep rolling with this. And if we need to make this a two-parter, we'll break it right here and then continue it on. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.